So I had become friends with one of my neighbors who lives across from me right now. Um, and we speak in Italian. So thank gosh, I could speak Italian. And I said to him, look, I'm looking to move, but I love this area and I don't want to leave it, but I do need to leave. I do want to leave my apartment. And he found his cousin had just built a little two room house. There's a bedroom, a kitchen, and a bathroom. And he was like, if you want, you can come see it. So I went and I saw it, and I'm like, all right, this is definitely smaller than what I'm used to, but it could work. And there's a view of the water. I have a little patio with a nice view of the water, and it's €100 a month.
Okay, so today we are heading over to the beautiful country of Albania, one of the most extraordinary places and unique places in Europe, with my friend Sarah Burghart. And Sarah's going to share why this place is so sensational. Sarah, good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, well, Sarah, let's get started by giving us a little bit of backstory about you, where you're from, and how you landed in Albania, and what part of Albania are you living in?
Okay. So I grew up in Connecticut and I did my entire university career in Italy. I ended up losing my permit to live there and stay there due to COVID.
Oh, wow.
And I traveled around the US a little bit, but I was very eager to get back to Europe. And it's very hard to come to Europe without retirement, investments, a student, or being very qualified for a job. I don't fit any of that anymore. So I was just online one day, late night scrolling, and I started seeing beautiful pictures of beaches and I started clicking, and it was Albania. I was very shocked. Despite living in Italy for so many years, I never thought about Albania. And then I found out that Americans can stay here for a year without a visa. And
Yeah.
that was all I needed to hear. And now I've been in Albania for about a year and a half. And I have chosen Vlore or Vlora as my
Mhm.
home.
Okay. So the secret is out that you can stay in Albania for a year. You
Yeah.
just can't do that in Spain or Italy or France.
I know.
So,
Yeah,
okay.
it's out. It's definitely out.
So let's dive right into the visa. So for the people that are watching this podcast, so you say you can go for a year. After that year, so is that a tourist visa? What kind of a visa is it? And are there any requirements? Do you got to show like you make a certain income to be able to qualify to stay for a year or no?
You do have to make a certain income. It depends on each visa that you get. There actually are quite a few different visas. The two most popular though for Americans are the retirement visa and opening up a business.
Okay.
So I chose the opening up a business one, and that you need to have at least 5,000 euros in your bank account.
Okay.
And you need really the most important thing you need though is a notarized housing contract.
Okay.
So a lot of landlords don't want to deal with contracts and on top of that to be notarized. So that was pretty difficult. I mean, not difficult, but it's a little intimidating. But I think the landlords are now realizing that okay, we've got a lot of foreigners here and they need this, and we're just going to have to do it. I got fortunate with my landlord; it really wasn't difficult to get from him, and he's a lawyer, so that worked out very well.
Hmm.
Um, and then you need to do the usual like fingerprints. You need to have a business plan. And I paid an immigration lawyer and he did all of that for me. He did the business plan. I have a certificate to teach English as a second language. So I just sent that to him. He did what he did. And a few weeks later, I got the notice to just go get my fingerprints done and go pay for um, they call it a coupon at the post office that just shows that you've paid to be able to do this.
Hmm.
And then you do all that. You go to the immigration and you can pick up your card in 2 weeks. It's very compared to what I had to do in Italy. It was very very simple. And in
Yeah.
Italy, on a student visa, I had to do it every year. I had to renew this. So for Americans with opening up your business, it's called persona physique for the specific visa.
Okay.
You can do a visa for only 1 year, but you could pay 50 euros more and get a 5 year visa. So I naturally was like, yeah, I'd much rather do that. So I got my 5 year visa. Now, with a retirement visa, I know you do have to apply for that. Um, I think the first year, I know you definitely can't apply immediately for the 5 year. I do know that much.
Okay.
If you can do the first year, and then I believe you can apply for a 2 year and then work your way up.
Okay.
They have to prove a monthly income. I'm not positive on the amount, but I do know it's more than 1,000, and it's definitely less than 2,000.
Okay.
So you have to be able to prove that you can do that that way. And that is as much as I know for the. You do need a notarized contract, and you do need a background check. Actually, you do need
Yes.
that.
Okay.
So theirs is a little bit more involved. But once again, it's very easy. If you do it yourself, it's going to be a headache. That's why I was trying to do that in the beginning. I was like, I'll save a little money and just do it myself. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
no, forget it. Especially when I found out I can get the 5 year one.
Yeah.
Um, but there are a few documents that are easier in terms of the retirement visa, easier to get in the US. You can get them at the American Embassy here, but that is also why it's a good idea to talk to an immigration lawyer before you make the move so that you can just get them way easier in your hometown, everything you need, and then just come ready to apply and you get started.
Thinking about moving abroad? Adventure Freaks is packed with resources to help you every step of the way. Want immigration support? We connect you with experts who understand the process inside and out, giving you the most up-to-date, reliable information. No more sifting through outdated websites or confusing embassy pages. You can click on the country you're interested in and scroll down and see our helpful links here. Here's immigration and visas, which will connect you with an immigration lawyer in that country. Curious about life abroad? Talk to expats who've already made the move, all of which we've done podcasts with on our YouTube channel. Whether it's day-to-day living or navigating local bureaucracy, they've been there and can share their firsthand experience. You can also book a one-on-one consultation with me. I've spoken with hundreds of expats and professionals around the world, and I'm here to help you navigate the process and find the right destination for you. Not sure where to go? Our ideal destination finder can help. Answer 20 simple questions and discover the top 3 countries that match your lifestyle and priorities, all based on your answers. Plus, you can dive into our helpful articles covering everything from finding housing to understanding healthcare abroad. AdventureFreaks.com makes it easy to get the answers you need straight from the source. If you're ready to start your journey, we're here to help. Okay, let's back up a little bit. So this 1 year stay for
Mm-hmm.
people coming from the US, how does that work? Is that like a tourist visa?
No, nothing.
It's no visa.
You don't, no, you just show up and that's it.
You
You
can
don't have
stay.
to apply for anything at the airport or nothing.
Okay, so you can stay a full year. So what you're referring to is after that full year, then you
Yeah, yeah,
started to
after that year.
pursue, after that first full year, then you're like going, okay, there's several visas. You did the business visa and you need to
Yes,
show
yes.
$5,000 in an account, and that's it. That's the only
Yep,
qualification.
yep.
Now here's
Well, and then you need a notarized contract.
a notary. Okay, so now once you start a business visa in Albania, you obtained a business visa, do you have to show that the business is making money?
Yeah, so for you get like a tax number for a business.
Okay,
However, Albania in the first 2 years, they understand you're growing your business. So for the first 2 years, they don't really check on anything like that.
I
But
see.
after the 2 year mark, if you're not recording any profits or anything like that, then it's going to get suspicious.
Okay.
So I just got my visa, my permit. So I'm not worried about that too much right now. But they do, yeah, eventually you are going to have to start providing something.
Okay, so then you went the business visa route, and you could do that for 5 years, which is pretty cool. And okay, great. Great information. Is there anything else we need to know about that, Sarah? Or
I would add that a lot of people do choose Albania for a retirement destination because you don't get taxed on your pension. And you do need to deposit your pension into an Albanian bank account.
okay.
So you do need a bank account for that as well. A common misconception, which I always heard as soon as I moved here, is that for the persona physique, the visa that I got,
Yeah.
you do need to open up a bank account, which can be a little tedious and difficult for some people. But that actually is not true. That is not true for at this moment in time for the persona physique opening up a business. That is not true.
Okay. Great information. So the wonderful thing about Albania is right across from Italy, right? It's not far. It's right on the top of Greece. You're very close
Yep.
to, I think, what is it, Corfu? Or
Yep. Corfu, 30
okay,
minute ferry ride from Saranda.
so you're very close to these really spectacular areas, very much of a similar landscape as you would see in Italy. And the great thing about Albania is that you could stay there for a full year to really figure out if it's the right place for you. So great information.
Yeah.
Okay, so you live in Vlore, and that
Hmm.
town is spelled Vlore, correct?
Yes. With
Okay.
the two little dots above the E.
So and what's special about Vlore? That's a coastal town, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
When I was doing my little research about where I would like to settle here, Vlore wasn't really on my radar. From what I saw, I just got this like industrial vibe from it, which is what I wasn't going for. I actually was really drawn to Saranda because it's so close to Greece and I love Greece.
Yep.
It seemed like a smaller town, more low key, but I got an Airbnb there for like a month, and within 2 weeks, I was like, yeah, this isn't my place. I went in the off season, which is important because it's totally different in the high season. So
Yes.
you should get a good idea of what all areas are like in both seasons before you really choose.
Yeah.
And I actually had connected with an American that had been living here for almost a year. We connected on Facebook before I moved, and he was like, "Why don't you just come to Vlore? We have a little expat community. I think you'd like it." And I ended up renting a car, going there for a day. I really liked it. I saw an apartment the next day and I was like, all right, I'm going to Vlore. And turns out that I really do love it here. It's nice because there's a long coastal stretch. So for people with like knee problems or something like that, it's all flat along the coast.
Okay.
Whereas Saranda, there are more hills and there's not like a long promenade to walk on, not nearly
Mhm.
as long as ours here. So it's nice for people that have some problems, mobility problems. It's nice to go bike riding or running, or I've seen people rollerblading now. And there's such a stretch of the beaches. And if you don't
Mhm.
want to go there, you can just walk a little bit, on the outskirts, and there are more beaches there.
Nice.
And they're actually, yeah, they're opening up the airport. They're supposed to open it up this month, and it's kind of become this running joke because it's like every month it's supposed to open and then it doesn't. And I know some people that have driven by recently, and it's nobody
Yeah.
thinks it's going to be open this month.
Yeah.
But when it does open, that will definitely bring. It'll be a lot easier to travel. I personally, and I know a lot of other expats are not happy about it because Vlore is going to turn into something more popular,
Yeah.
and we don't know if we're going to be seeing the airplanes flying over all the time. We don't know what to expect, so we're a little nervous about that.
Sure.
Whereas I was just talking to an American who's going to have to go back to fly back to the US once a month for work, and she's like, I can't wait, that's going to be so much easier.
Yeah.
So some people are really excited and some people are a little nervous.
And so for right
Yeah.
now, anybody that wants to fly out of Vlore, you have to what, trek back to Tirana, the capital?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And that's about, depending on the time of day and the time of year, 2.5 hour drive.
Okay.
And they have buses that will go take you there for like $13.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of makes it a little bit more difficult. Like if you did have the airport here, it'd be a lot easier. But
Yeah.
I'm willing to go to Tirana like a lot of other people are, so that we don't have that airport traffic here.
Right.
But yeah, Tirana at this moment is the best place to go. There is an airport in Corfu. They are redoing it right now, and I believe they're adding new destinations, so that could be a bigger airport because before they didn't have it, it didn't go everywhere and it was a little bit more
Yeah.
expensive.
Right.
But I think also Corfu is probably noticing Albania is getting big.
Yeah.
So if they improve that airport, it's much easier for the people in Saranda to just take the ferry there instead of traveling
Right.
like 5 hours to Tirana.
Yes. So Saranda is on the kind of south west coast of Albania, and it takes
Mhm.
30 minutes by ferry to reach Corfu, the Greek island. And they have a big international
Mhm.
airport that a lot of people, rather than going up to Tirana, which is going to be a 5 hour bus ride, they just take the 30-minute ferry over to Greece in Corfu and fly out of the international airport there. So it's really cool. It's a really wonderfully positioned city. How far are you from that airport in Vlore?
How long it would take for me to get from here to Corfu?
Yeah. Yeah. If you wanted to
So
fly
they
out of there.
did open. Yeah, it's about the same. Vlore is like the middle city between Tirana and Saranda. So it
Okay.
would be about the same. It would be easier for me to just go to Tirana because that doesn't involve a ferry.
Yeah.
But in terms of driving, it's going to be more or less the same. They did open up a tunnel to Saranda that cut off about 45 minutes.
Hmm.
I have yet to see it, and I know they have been doing some work there recently, so it's been closed. I don't know what kind of work, but it has been closed. I assume that's going to be open for the summer months, though.
Hmm.
But that cut off 45 minutes, which is kind of a lot.
Yeah. Nice.
So when that's up and running, it is closer than Tirana.
Yeah. Well, let's break down a little bit before we dive into the cost of living stuff. I'm just curious, what is Vlore like? Like living there? I mean, is it walkable? Are there cafes? Are there cafes you can sit outside? Do many of these cafes maybe have views of the sea? What's the feel
Yeah.
like? What's the vibe like there?
I've heard a lot of people say that Vlore reminds them of Miami
Interesting.
because not in terms of nightlife, but just
Yeah.
looking at it, you've
Okay.
got all the hotels and the restaurants and right across from the beach, and you've got this long stretch of beach, and you've got the palm trees. But a lot of people, when they think of Vlore, they just think of Lungomare, we call it, that promenade along the sea. But
Yeah.
there's so much more to it. You've got the old town, you've got closer to like Svernek, which is where there's a nature reserve and it's way quieter. It's not as developed. And then you've just got like all the little unknown areas in between that. So some people prefer Old Town. Most people prefer Lungomare because it's right there by the water.
Hmm.
Uh, but it's a small city, which is very nice because you
Hmm.
still recognize people, even if you don't know their name. You're like, oh, I see them there all the time, or
Yeah.
oh, that's that person with that dog. And because it's such a small expat community, although it is growing very fast,
Yeah.
even like you'll see an expat comment on the Facebook group, and then you see them walk by, and you're like, oh, that's the person that commented.
Right.
Um, so it's nice because small city feel. You still know people, but uh, it's not like dead in winter.
Hmm.
It is a little easier to find, not as easy as Tirana, but easier to find things there than in other smaller towns that aren't as developed.
Right.
And it's definitely getting more developed. That's for sure. I was just
Yeah.
on a street that it's called the Street of Citrus, and they put in, citrus plants. They put in bananas the other day, and
Cool.
I was like, wow, if I didn't know any better, I'd think I was right by the sea because it just had this lovely, like once again, like a Florida vibe with the
Yeah.
palm trees. And they were in the middle of reconstruction, but I was like, this is going to be such a pretty road when they're done.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not many people go to that area because everyone's so focused on Lungomare.
Gotcha.
But
Interesting.
very flat, which is so nice. It's very flat along Lungomare, and most of it's flat, but like in the area that I live in, it's up a hill, but I love that because I get the best of both worlds. I get a view of the sea, and then when I look behind me, I get to see the hills and all the olive groves and the citrus plants.
Mm.
So, but for the most part, Vlore is a pretty flat city.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it sounds gorgeous. All right, well, let's dive into some of the cost of
Yeah.
living stuff. So in Vlore, you got to get a rental to live. What do they start for? This
Hmm.
is probably one of the most intriguing and amazing things about Albania.
Yeah, yeah. So it definitely has gone up. I just had somebody ask me the other day if getting a rental 10 steps from the sea for 150 to $200 is doable anymore. And I was like, it's not. A few years ago, yes.
Yeah.
But I'll give you some examples. So my first apartment, it was a two bedroom, two bath, lovely large balcony overlooking the water. It was about a 10-15 minute walk up a hill. But I had my elderly neighbors doing that hill more than me and like barely breaking a sweat. So it's really depends on the person. I didn't think it was worth the views for sure. But some of my friends were like, "Oh my gosh, you live up the hill." It's really not that bad though. But I paid 300 euros for that. Two bedroom, two bath, spacious living room, a nice kitchen, three balconies, one of which was long and 180-degree view of the water. Mm.
Can you still get that for the same amount?
Yes, you totally can. And actually, I just saw the other apartment that was below me is for rent for 250. Now, this is where it gets important, the real estate agents that you go through, because there are some real estate agents here that are known for upping the prices.
Yeah,
And I also tell people what they should do is if you find an apartment that you really like, do a Google image search on the
yeah,
images because here anybody can represent that property. And I've seen a few properties where on this real estate site it's 300 and on this one it's 375.
sure.
So you really do your research, but it's hard for us because no matter even if it's expensive here for Americans, it's still very very cheap.
Yes,
So they do think, "Oh my god, this is a great deal." But if you do your research, you're going to be like, "Oh, you know what? Maybe not." And then of course that's going to start other things to rise. Like I just saw a comment the other day that it was an Albanian and he was saying that Tirana the prices are on the rise and it's starting to happen where the locals can't afford it anymore. And I
uh,
was like, "Oh no, I hope that doesn't happen to Vlore." But if people don't do their homework, that is going to happen here because
sure.
it's already happening. I just had a friend tell me that she's renting a one bedroom, and the price she told me without a sea view, I was like, I didn't want to rain on her parade, but I was like, oh man, that is not a good deal.
Yeah.
Um,
And
but
this
there
is
are
in
some
Vlore?
like there's one real. Yeah, this isn't Vlore. Yep. But like I said, it's a great deal for Americans, but it's not a great deal here.
Right.
I mean, for Albanians, and if you want to keep the living prices down and everything,
Hmm.
that is important. But so the place that I live in now, I live further up the hill, where it's if I have a nice pace going, I can get there 15-20 minutes. It's not, once again, though, I do have elderly neighbors that go up and down and have no problem, but I have a lot of people that think it's crazy where I live.
Yeah.
But it's quiet. I don't have to deal with a tourist. It's cooler. I walk along olive groves. That is
Mm.
my road is full of olive groves. And when
Wow.
it was olive season in October and all my neighbors were out on the olive trees
Mm.
cutting down the olives, it was the coolest thing to experience. And I
Wonderful.
know, it takes a while for me to get to the store and I'm a little secluded, but I will choose that over lungomare with the noise and the stray animals and all that. I will choose that walk up that hill over
Yeah.
lungomare any day. And so I had become friends with one of my neighbors who lives across from me right now. Um, and we speak in Italian. So thank gosh, I could speak Italian. And I said to him, look, I'm looking to move, but I love this area and I don't want to leave it, but I do need to leave. I do want to leave my apartment. And he found his cousin had just built a little two room house. There's a bedroom, a kitchen, and a bathroom. And he was like, if you want, you can come see it. So I went and I saw it, and I'm like, all right, this is definitely smaller than what I'm used to, but it could work. And there's a view of the water. I have a little patio with a nice view of the water, and it's 100 euros a month.
That's where you're living
Now
right
I
now?
got yeah,
So
a
you
hundred
actually took
euros.
you actually took this house and you have a
I
view of the
did.
sea and you're paying 100 euros.
Yep.
But you're up the hill
Yep.
where a lot of people refuse
I'm
to
up the
go.
hill.
You got to walk a bit.
Yeah, but like I said, it's a matter of who, some people think walking 3 miles a day is a lot, and some people are like, that's it. Like I could do that,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
in very quickly. So it's really a matter of it depends on the person. I'm the only and another great part about living right here, and this is exactly what I wanted when I moved here, is that I am in a little neighborhood with like two Albanian families and all the cousins and all their brothers and sisters, and then I'm just the random foreigner there.
Yeah.
And they call me their granddaughter, their daughter, their niece. They're even if I can't understand all of them because not all of them can speak Italian. Like there's one lady, she's older. We always try to talk, and she's pretty comical. It's very funny try to figure out what they're saying because Google Translate is still pretty behind with translating Albanian. Some
Uh-huh.
of the stuff
Yeah.
that it translates is just it makes absolutely no sense. It's
Yeah.
very funny. So that doesn't really I don't even bother to bring that anymore because it just doesn't make any sense to me. Uh, but yeah, I like to live amongst the Albanians with the away from the crowds.
Yeah.
So I'm happy here.
That's great.
Yeah, not
That
Longobody isn't for everyone, just like, living up here isn't for everyone.
Just quickly, if for some of the people that are going, okay, if we're going to go to Albania and the prices are really fairly inexpensive, what could they get a one bedroom or a two bedroom right on the coast where you can have a view of the sea? What would that run today?
I know someone with that, and she's got a great view, and she's very close to like the center, but she's at the part where the center kind of meets Lungomare. So
Yeah.
she's kind of got the best of both worlds in terms of that. And she pays, I think it's either 300 or 350.
Okay.
So I have another friend. She's one bedroom, one bath. She doesn't have a sea view, but she's like a 3-minute walk from the sea, and it's $300
Okay.
or
So
three
that
hundred
seems to
euros.
be, so it's very affordable. Do you have any idea what these apartments are selling for? For example, if you wanted to buy an apartment there?
Yeah. So sometimes this is when it kind of comes to if you know an Albanian and you're friends with them,
Yes.
they can find it better for you. But you can definitely find a place here for around $50,000. Now, in 6 months to a year, probably not. But right now, you can. You do have to do a little digging.
Yeah.
I do know an American woman. She just bought an apartment that it's still being built. I believe it was a one bedroom, one bath, um, right along the water, and they're adding amenities and stuff like that as more people move in. And she paid $150,000. Now, right now, the thing with Vlore is that and basically from 50 to 150 is like the going rate around here.
Yeah.
But with the airport coming and we've got
Sure.
some investors coming,
Yeah. It's going to be a game
um,
changer.
that's not, it's going to be a huge game changer. They're more so like the lady that I just bought the newly developed apartment. I think she's kind of looking that as an investment for right now. Like she
Yeah.
can definitely make good money off of that. I mean, the prices for Airbnbs in the summer here is incredible
Right.
compared to
Yeah.
the off season.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but then there's also a lot of small little coastal towns from Vlore to Saranda that in a few years are going to blow up. But for
Sure.
right now, you can get even cheaper for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Great.
also the outskirts. That's what's happening in Saranda is that it's getting too expensive and people are looking for the outskirts. And
Yeah.
that's going to happen to Vlore soon. And we have a few nice villages outside that
Mhm.
in a few years those are going to be going up too.
How far are those villages from the beach, would you say?
Oof, kilometers, I'm not sure because it's all like
Gotcha.
driving like this, but the
Yeah.
one here, it's right outside of Vlore. It's called Kanina, and that's maybe like 15 minutes in the car.
Yeah, that's almost
Not
like
far at all. And
ideal.
they've got this, yeah. And you're away from the summer crowds. Now the traffic
Yes.
does get a little crazy, but there's a rumor in my neighborhood, and I do believe it, that they are going to build a road that leads because I live right under the main highway in Vlore.
Hmm.
Not so close that like that's all I hear every day, but I do live underneath that, and there is a really rough road that's not paved that can potentially lead to Lungomare, and the neighbors are all saying that the government is going to pave that,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
we're not happy about because it's not going to be this nice little quiet neighborhood anymore,
Sure.
but that is going to be helpful to get from the bypass down to the water.
Okay. Great information, Sarah. Thanks for that. Well, let's dive into the cost of living, breaking it down for the viewers. So, what do people spend? What do you spend on utilities per month?
Okay. So I just looked up my bills. I'm like, oh, I gotta pay every 3 months. That's the maximum. Actually, quite interestingly, up until like a year or so ago, you didn't have to pay your bills and it wouldn't be shut off.
Wow.
And now it's 3 months is the maximum, and then they'll shut it off. Yeah, I learned that
Okay.
the hard way. When I first, actually, that's another thing that's important to know because I just found out about this, and luckily my landlord and I worked it out. But my first apartment, none of the bills had been paid for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
So I paid for them and then we just deducted that from my rent. But I recently just heard of a lady who bought an apartment and for 6 years, the bills hadn't been paid and
Wow.
she had to pay for it.
Uh-oh.
Another friend just rented an apartment and the bills hadn't been paid for 4 months. So that is also another thing to double check when you're buying or renting. But so for January, that was about $50. And in February, it was about $75. And
Okay.
February was very cold. And I did use that heater a lot. And I
Mhm.
actually thought I was going to have to pay more than that, but I switched to a radiator. I
Okay.
had an electric heater, and like last year, my heating bill for the highest was 150,
Mm-hmm.
but the radiator clearly made a big difference. So I'm happy I made that transition. But for electricity for January was $50. February was about 75. Um, the most I've ever paid was that 150 last year due to the electric heater. And then in the summer, mine ranged from like 13 or the warmer months, let's say, from like
Yeah.
13 euros to like $30. And or 30 euros. The 30 euro one, I had my fans on all day, every day. Now, I don't have an AC. I rely on space heaters and just fans. So that is going to make a difference. I do know
Sure.
someone that had an AC last year and she said it was blasting all the time and her electricity was $60.
So if you
And
had,
it's just me and
yeah, if you did an overall average, when you take the low months, the high months, what do you think you pay per month or a person would have to pay per month?
I'd say between like 30 to 40.
Per month, year round.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
And that's electric
30 to 40, I
water.
would say.
Is that electric water?
So I don't Okay, so for water, I don't pay water. I actually get the water straight from the source here, which is also another great thing living up here. We all get our water from the fountain that actually goes down into Lungomare where everyone else gets their water, but we get it first. So I don't have to pay for water. In my first apartment, my water was 14 euros. It was a fixed price. It was 14 euros per month.
Okay.
Um, I don't think water is really. Whenever I hear expats complaining about bills, it's always it's always the heater. I never hear them complaining about water, so I don't think that's a
Sure.
heavy bill to pay or
Right.
an expensive bill to pay. Um, yeah, and that's what these prices are for me, and I've got 3 dogs, so
Okay.
this is a one-person household, really.
What do you pay for
Yeah, I
Wi-Fi
don't
and
think water's
cell?
okay. So for Wi-Fi, I opted to get a 2-year contract because I knew I was going to be here for a while. And I went with one. A lot of people go with Vodafone. I had to go with one because Vodafone did not have service up here yet. But I have one and I have no issue with them. And I pay for unlimited internet, cable TV, and my cell phone, which is unlimited text calling, internet, 45 euros a month.
Okay. Wow, that's a good deal.
Yes.
That's a
Yeah.
real,
Yep.
that's good for the
I know. I
online.
hear people paying like over $100 in the US for a cell phone. And I'm like, what are you doing? But it's
Yeah.
also too important to like note that I am a frugal person. I do have my little things that I do spend extra on, but in general, I'm a pretty frugal person. Even when I lived in the US, I had like one of those discount US services. It was Tello. I had, oh, there's another one that I always see commercials for. Metro. I
Yeah.
went with those providers and it
Gotcha.
was like $10, $15 a month. I had no issue with them.
Right.
So you
Yeah.
could definitely get more expensive deals here, but I mean not as expensive as the US, but
Sure.
I also am a frugal person.
Okay. All right. Great. Let's dive into groceries. What do you budget? per month for groceries? Are groceries as expensive there as they are in the US?
No, and I've been wondering, I kind of want to make a joke, but I don't want to piss anyone off about the egg prices here.
I know.
Because of course I still have my American friends on Facebook and I keep seeing all these memes and these comments and I'm like, "Oh my gosh. I mean, eggs here from your local farmer for one egg is like 13 cents."
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, it's things actually that's probably the most I spend on is food.
Okay.
And also dog food because there are a lot of expats moving here with animals
Yeah,
and animal food is kind of like the US. So that's not you could it's cheaper than the US, but that's definitely a
yeah.
higher up there in price. But I
Sure.
get away with comfortably like not really watching what I spend with about 50 bucks a week
Okay.
for
So
groceries.
about
Now,
200
if you
per month.
heavily rely, yeah, and if you heavily rely on, and now I don't eat a lot of meat, I don't buy meat. I did actually take a look at the meat prices just so I could tell you because I otherwise I wouldn't know. But I eat a lot of veggies and pasta and cheese and that kind of thing.
You
And that's,
sound
yeah, that's
like
what I would get. I do
you
hear some
sound like you
expats.
used to live in Italy or something.
Yeah, I know. I know. My eating habits got a lot better there than it was in the US, that's for sure. That is so true. And actually, their eating habits here, there's definitely an Albanian cuisine. I would not consider it part of like really the hardcore, Mediterranean European diet type thing. They love their Albanian dishes.
Hmm.
I mean, fish is a big thing here because we're right on the sea,
Yep.
and veggie. Like my neighbor the other day, she wanted to teach me how to make burek, which is like a pastry with spinach inside. You could put cheese or other
Yeah.
things, but mostly it's just spinach. And she took most of the spinach from her yard. She took the green onions from her yard and she made it. And I couldn't, unfortunately, stay. I had something to do. But later on, her husband brought me over 3 pieces and I had that for
Mm.
dinner. So
Mm.
they also, what I love about Albania too, and I think this is probably because of communism, they're so resourceful here.
Uh-huh.
I mean, people are constantly using their natural resources. And
Yeah.
like how I made this comment the other day to someone and they thought it was hilarious. Up here, especially not down in Lungomare, I see so many like gates to the yard as old mattress frames.
Interesting.
Because I and that just yeah, you just see like the whole the metal mattress frame,
Yeah.
that's their door. And I see it all the time here up in the hills.
Yeah.
So I do love that. They love eating what they grow and yeah, that's great. So, yeah, for someone that doesn't eat a lot of meat, 50 bucks comfortably. Now, if you stick with like really just veggies and fruits and pasta, you could definitely go cheaper than that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. All right. Good info. All right. Let's move on to restaurants. So, what does a local ma and pa restaurant meal cost? And what do you think you'd need to budget per month to eat out a couple times a week or?
Yeah. You can if you really do go to the local mom and pop stores, you could get a nice meal for less than $10 for sure.
Okay. Okay.
There's a few in particular that are here that are known for the mom's in the kitchen cooking. When it's busy, she's running around like a chicken without a head, but you get a very nice, good home cooked meal and you barely spend any money. There's another
Mhm.
place here. It's not mom and pop. Um, that's become kind of an expat hangout here because it's the cheapest place you can get a drink. Their large beers at this one place are €2 and 50 cents, and it's like
Mhm.
like the large pints.
Yeah.
Pizzas you can get for $5. A personal pizza, $5.
Here's the question.
Um,
Here's the question. Are those pizzas as good as the Italian pizzas?
okay, so what I think about Albanian pizza. So I grew up in Connecticut, and Connecticut, New Jersey, New York.
Yeah.
The pizza there, it is what it is. When I lived in Italy, I was not a huge fan of the pizza.
Mm.
I always love my cheesy mozzarella pizza. And in Italy, they just don't put that much cheese on it. And it's a lot thinner, of course, because it's a personal pizza.
Yeah.
So I always preferred the American pizza for that. However, in Albania, Well, in Vlore, there is a huge Albanian Italian influence, and I think the pizza here is the perfect middle point between the American pizza and the Italian pizza. And I think actually Albanian pizza is the best pizza I've had now.
Wow.
It's just the perfect combination. Yeah. And I
That's
actually met a
great.
couple from New York the other day. I told them to go to this place because they've got cheap beer and they've got good pizza. And they even said it was better than the pizza in New York. Now, I don't know if I
Whoa.
would go that far if I was a New Yorker. I might piss some people off. But they told me that, and I was like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they can really do some nice pizza here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yep. And then
that's
seafood is cheap. Like, yeah. I know when they told me that, I was like, whoa.
yeah, go ahead.
I went to there's one restaurant, there's like a it goes out into the water. And once again, like all places here, the customer service is a little lacking, but it makes up for it because of the view. It's a little bit higher in price. And by higher, I mean like maybe 50 cents to a euro more than the people that aren't right on the water.
Hmm.
But I got a cold seafood salad the other day there, and it was 15 euros more or less, which is a little expensive, but it was so good. It was
Yes.
so good. The portion was good. And I think that's the best place I've had, besides my neighbor, because my neighbor is a fisherman and he'll go out and catch some fish and then they'll bring me over the fish.
Mm.
Besides that fish that they bring me, this seafood salad was the best one that I've ever had. It was so good.
Wow, that's great. So it
Yeah.
sounds like if you're if you go out a couple times a week, it looks like you could get by in about $80 a month. If you go out a
Oh,
couple times
totally.
a if you go out a couple times a week, the meal's about $10 each. You're going to spend about $80 a month, right? Yeah, $80 a month for a
Yep.
single person. That's
Yes. And that's also me being frugal. Like there are definitely restaurants here that charge more, but I'm like, well, I'm
yeah,
also a creature of habit. When I find a place that I like, I go there a lot.
yes.
So there are a few places that I've heard really good things about. They're a little bit more expensive and I would like to eventually try. I'm kind of looking at it as like I'm going to be here for a while. I've got all the time in the world to try these places. So
Yes.
when it happens, it happens.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's dive into getting around or transportation. It sounds to me
Mm.
like the way you described it, Sarah, you're a walker. And it looks like
Yeah.
even if you're up the hill, you can access pretty much everything if you enjoy walking. Is that accurate in my assessment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so
Even like, yeah.
how much would you stay? And if is there taxis and rideshare, or even kind of is there a metro or any kind of system, public transportation system there? What does it cost getting around? Give the viewers an idea what that's about.
So that is one thing that is lacking in Albania is public transportation and a metro station. There is one train station. I think it's by Tirana, but it only goes there's somewhere up north. I did an expat did say that there was a small little train there, but it's very undeveloped with in
Okay.
terms of that. Um, So most people use a car. Cars are they're not as expensive as the US, that's for sure. They love Mercedes here. Like when I first rented a car, and you can find a car off season renting for a daily rental anywhere between like $15 to 50. It depends on where you are. If you're renting from a person that actually owns the car, like there's a website called Rent from Locals.
Okay.
And actually, you can find cars on there for like $8, but that's all Tirana. So
Yeah.
between like $8 and $50. Most people use a car or walking. A lot of the expats use just walk.
Okay.
Actually, what's become popular: biking, walking, and electric scooters. Electric scooters, I've definitely seen take off here. A few expats have purchased them as well because they do have a dedicated bike path. So you
Okay.
don't have to go in the street. That's along Lungomare. When you get more into like the center of Vlore and the heart of Vlore, you do have to go on the street. But I've never felt unsafe doing that on my bike. I love using my bike. Um, but yeah, buying a car is an option, although not many expats here do that because it is so walkable. I
Sure.
do take the bus a lot. There are two buses here. Um, one goes two local buses, I should say. One goes on one side of town and the other one goes on the other side of town.
Okay.
That's 40 cents. You just get on, you sit down, the guy will come around and you pay 40 cents. And it doesn't matter how far or how little you go. So even if you only get on one stop, it's still 40 cents.
Okay.
And they're very particular. They will not accept euros, which I think is funny because most people here will accept euros, especially if it's just change. They might do a little conversion fee, but they are so strict on it being lek in the bus, which absolutely, lek is your currency, but it's kind of funny. But yeah, 40 cents for that. So maybe, yeah, more or less 40 cents in the US currency as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
buses and walking. A lot of expats are getting bikes too.
okay, so what do you think you need to get around town per month? 40-cent ride, is it under $10
Yeah.
per month for you?
Absolutely, absolutely. The only times I really take the bus is if it's raining or it's like further into town and I don't really have the time or feel like walking. Otherwise, I walk or I use my bicycle.
I see.
So you really don't even, yeah, you could totally get away with never even using the bus
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
and spending nothing on transportation. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Taxis, now we don't have Uber or anything like that.
Uh-huh.
But there are taxis. So
Okay.
usually when you find your taxi guy, because also taxis can be a ripoff. There are a few people in
Yeah.
town that we know to avoid because they definitely rip off the foreigners. But when you
Sure.
find your good taxi guy, you always call them. There is an app recently that some people use where you can it's like an Uber where you can order them ahead of time, but it's an actual taxi driver and you can see the cost. But I feel very loyal to my taxi drivers here,
Yeah.
so I prefer to just call them. And they know so one of them we don't even understand each other, but he knows where I live. We have a set deal on what we're going to pay, and that's that.
Yeah. Do you know the name of that app?
It's called Vrapon.
That Wrap on
There was
for
another one for
taxi.
a while that
Okay.
yeah.
Oh,
I was seeing ads for another one last summer.
another thing that I wanted to clarify, and I forgot to ask when we were talking about rentals, and you were talking about there's site you want to definitely check various sites to make sure that certain real estate people aren't upcharging. What are the names of those sites for people looking to find a rental?
What off the top of my head, there's one that's called Indominio.al that compares all sites. Then there's Century 21, there's Remax, there's some smaller ones called DES, Estate Deal.
Okay. All right, good information. All right, we're on entertainment now. What do you do for fun, and how much do you need to budget to have fun in Vlore?
Yeah. So that is one thing that people do complain about Vlore is that there isn't much to do. There's definitely more to do in Tirana because it's Tirana. Saranda in the summer has kind of more to do. I think for the younger crowd, they have like party boats and like pub crawls and stuff like that. Here, I think it's more family friendly. Now, this could be changing in the next few years. It probably will. I hope it doesn't because I really like the low key vibe it has here.
Mhm.
But there's a few museums. We don't really, there's one club, but it's not like a huge thing to do. There are a few restaurants that will have live music, but I know this is one thing that annoys the expats, including myself, is that the music at these like bar club things, it's always the same. Like
Mm.
it would be nice to just walk into a bar and play some like, rock and roll and instead of like these these DJs with all this crazy music coming out. It all sounds the same.
Yeah. Okay.
Um so that's also why I think a lot of retirees come here because it's flat, it's by
Yeah.
the water and it is so relaxed.
Yes.
But there's really like if I want to have fun, I just walk down in Lungomare and like get a drink with a friend or get some lunch. Or if it's nice out, we just go to the water and we swim. There isn't a movie theater here. There's a theater with live plays, but it's in Albanian. They do. I will say that Vlora is definitely taking the initiative to increase what there is to do. Like in the summer months, there's there's definitely a lot more to do. And last year they actually had Steve Aoki come and perform, which was like so random, but
Hmm.
it was a good time. I did hear that they are trying to get like another big artist to come here, and it was free for us, so that was nice of them. Um, yeah, that is not really just walk along Lungomare and just chit chat with people, which is actually nice because you get to connect with people a lot more instead of like, oh, let's go to the movies or oh, let's do this and that. You really just like walk along the water and talk with people and catch up. You're more focused on them than what's around you.
Okay. All right. Well, the last thing we have, Sarah, is healthcare. What are your thoughts on
Okay.
healthcare and is it affordable in Albania? How do you access it?
So when I first moved here, in terms of healthcare, the only thing I've done is I went to the dentist and I
Okay.
got a cleaning. This was actually in Saranda. I got a cleaning and I had a permanent retainer in my mouth. It was almost 18 years I had it in my mouth.
Uh-huh.
And he took that off and he cleaned it. He didn't charge me for it. And I paid $25. A
Okay.
nice cleaning, removing of, yeah, he was like, you Americans and these permanent retainers, because that's an American thing. He's like, I've never seen someone with a retainer for 18 years.
Hmm.
Um, so that's super cheap. Actually, Albania's dental tourism is really growing here. That is a thing. I will see vans that it's like dental tourism, Vlore. So they clearly have enough customers to invest in vans and whatnot. A lot of people also come here for nose jobs. And so,
Really?
you know what's on the rise too is getting your hair, like hair plugs. That's
Really?
on the rise too. Yeah, 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 yeah. I know it's
Interesting.
interesting. But I have yet to actually use the doctor. So I have to pay for the visa 120 euros a month for like social security and healthcare.
Okay.
And then you get to choose like a doctor, your doctor that'll be here. I just picked up my permit maybe 2, 3 weeks ago, and I haven't because I want to choose a doctor that speaks English well enough, and
Yes.
I want to take my time choosing my doctor. So for like basic things, I personally haven't gotten anything like serious done here, or haven't even done a checkup yet.
Yeah.
But from what I hear from other people, like if you break your leg or something, you probably, if you can, if you know you're going to have a major surgery, go home or go to a surrounding country. Because also, like, I hear a lot of things in terms of sanitary reasons in hospitals. Some of them
Okay.
aren't up to par. There's a German hospital and an American hospital in Tirana, but
Uh-huh.
no Germans or Americans work there. Like, you think of that, and you're like, oh God, it's going to be like ours, and it's not.
Hmm.
Um, so I would say that if you're going to do anything more serious, maybe plan a trip outside of Albania, and hopefully
Okay.
with time they'll realize that that is something not only for the foreigners moving here, but for their own people, that is something that needs to be improved. But for small, minor things,
Yeah.
um, it's fine here. I can't tell you what like going to a private doctor, something like that would be, because at this point I'll just use my public health care.
Yeah.
Um, but that's not something that people complain about, like the pricing or anything. And like I said, dental tourism is really big here, and like cosmetic stuff.
Yeah.
I knew an American that lived here last year. She got like laser cosmetic stuff done, and it was super cheap for her, and she said the quality was very good.
Hmm.
So for healthcare, I can't comment on too much because I don't have personal experience. I will say that there was an American living here as a retiree for a while, and she did recently post saying that she is going to go back to the US because she realizes as she gets older, that is something that she really needs better quality for more
Sure.
serious problems. So she is
Okay.
going to leave even though she doesn't want to.
Yeah.
But also, even besides like quality of healthcare here, even if the person speaks English pretty well, for some people, and myself included, it's just more comfortable to go back to your home country where like you're comfortable with how things work there, more or less
Yeah.
with the healthcare, what the doctors are talking about, these crazy terms, and you know how it works there and what's
Right.
expected. So a lot of people will go abroad or back home and do like their yearly checkups or whatever, just because they feel more, that's kind of a sensitive thing. And so
Sure.
they want to be in their home country for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. So you're paying $120 per month. How do they calculate that? How would they calculate that for a retiree? Do you know?
What do you mean calculate it?
So you're paying $120 per month.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about my rent. Yeah. 120 and for oof, this is another thing that I'm not positive on, but I have heard you need, and it's often asked in the expat forums that they need their own private insurance. So a
Okay.
lot of people will go through like Cigna. I've heard a lot of people saying Cigna. I
Okay.
think once you reach that age, since you didn't really pay into their system at that point, you do need your own insurance.
Okay.
That is from I haven't heard anything besides that, but once again, I'm not in that position, so I can't completely verify that.
Well, let me ask you this. So, based
Yeah.
on what you're sharing with rents, the utilities are quite low there. You're paying about 200 a month
Mhm.
for groceries. You go out to eat, maybe 80 bucks a month. Sounds like your entertainment, transportation are free because you're a walker. At the high end, 350 for a rental, you're paying 100. Then you got 80 for restaurants, 200 for groceries. I mean, all in, when you think about it, all in, what can somebody live on in Vlore?
You could now, if you live like me, and also I was very lucky because I became friends with my neighbors, and that is something that if you really want to know like the ins and outs and get like the local prices,
Yeah.
you do need to know locals and your neighbors are a great resource to have. um if I mean, I can live off of, if I didn't have the dogs, it would be a lot cheaper, to be honest. um but I mean, on it, even like less than 500 euros, you could really, if you met the right people, you could really do fine on 500 euros.
Hmm.
But that is also, as of now, I don't, in the summer, depending on if you get a 1 year rental or from a year from now. But I think that most people, uh, like couples, I think, yeah, about 1,000 that's for a couple, is about what they spend.
Hmm.
Because if you're looking at an apartment, if you want to be where the action is and you get an apartment, say between 300 to like 450,
Yeah.
and then, food, whether or not you want to splurge or be careful with that. And then it doesn't really cost much to go out and have fun. So definitely under 1,000 you can do here, even with the exchange rate, because the exchange rate has been pretty good here.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, even with the exchange rate, $1,000, you could definitely live comfortably here.
Well, Sarah Burghart, thank you so much for taking all the time to share all of this information about living in Vlore, Albania, a really special place. I really appreciate it.
Definitely. I love talking about it. I love this place.
Yeah. All right. Well, great. Well, thanks again, and you have a great rest of your evening over there, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye bye.